down. His right eye swelling just a little bit. 3-punch combination, 4 punches, 5 punches, 6 punches by Gainer. And Kelly goes down, and his right eye is a mess. Kevin Kelly's right eye is functionally closed. Just going to have to work around it. And down goes Gainer. And he's hurt. He's wobbled. Hard left-hand shot by Gainer, right on the blind eye. And
Case him the other way.
Kelly gets tagged on the blind eye again. Kelly's nostrils now, both sides bleeding. Down goes Gainer.
A left hand, a big left hand, and Gainer may not get up. He will not get up.
6.
Why would he fight a fight like?
What's poppin', everybody? It's Danger Zone Boxing Talk, hosting the Final Bell podcast, and welcome to another show. I'm joined by my boy Malachi Ben Joseph, a.k.a. BC Left Hook, and I'm your boy Twine B. Liberty, a.k.a. The Divine. And we got a night of interesting topics for you today, man. So let my boy Malachi introduce himself. What's going on with you today, man?
Chilling, bro. Ready for this weekend's fight. Excited to talk about what we got on the table today. And I'll let you take over, bro.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this thing going, man. We're gonna start off with some news that was populating early in the week. Pretty controversial once we dive into it, but we had Dillian Whyte withdrawn from his October 30th fight against Ottoman Wallin due to a shoulder injury. Let me get your thoughts on all of this, man, because I know there's a lot surrounding this, a lot of X factors. So let me get your thoughts on this withdrawal and get just your thoughts, bro.
I think it's unfortunate for Wallin, who a lot of people were on the fence of believing that he was going to beat Dillian Whyte. I don't know if I was quite there. As much as people dislike Dillian Whyte for the stuff and the antics that he does, the man should have already fought for a world title by now. I mean, that's just the way it should be. He's been a mandatory, and he should have. I don't know if this injury is I don't want to say accuse a fighter of faking an injury. We do know what happens, and has happened in the past. And people now are even being accused of false positives for COVID. I hate it. I hate it for Otto, though, because I think that a lot of people thought he could win this fight, and he might have been able to.
I'm kind of going to agree with you and disagree with you on some certain points there. I definitely felt Wallin was a big – I agree with you on the part that Wallin was definitely going to be a big part as far as possibly spoiling the party for Dillian Whyte, and I think that has a lot to do with him pulling out. I've gone on and see so far on social media platforms that people are actually thinking Dillian Whyte faked this injury to go directly into his fight against WBC heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, being that he's the interim WBC title holder right now, and he really didn't have to take this fight. So, I mean, I honestly think this was Eddie Hearn protecting himself after we've seen Dillian Whyte get sparked by Alexander Povetkin, and I didn't think he wanted to put that fight in jeopardy. As far as Dillian Whyte was supposed to be mandatory or supposed to have a shot already, I kind of disagree because he's had chances to be in other final eliminators, such as against Luis Ortiz and, a couple of other instances. He rejected an eliminator against Luis Ortiz. He rejected an original eliminator against Tyson Fury. He's been offered rematches against Anthony Joshua, rejected it. Also against Pulev. So, I mean, he's had his chance to get another title or another title shot. I think he's just been on some bullshit. And I don't really think he should be in a fight against Tyson Fury immediately, considering he's only on a one-fight win streak after, the Povetkin KO. I kind of think it should take something else. But, I mean, the Wallin fight was something that was standing between him and Tyson Fury, and they found a way out of it. That's just my humble opinion. I don't see him injuring himself 1 week exactly before that fight was supposed to take place, but there's a lot of other things going around in the media, such as the ticket sales weren't going well and, all of that. There's just a whole bunch of conjecture going around. So I'm kind of skeptical as to him being really injured. And even if so, it was stating that the winner of Whyte would be the challenger or the mandatory challenger for Tyson Fury, and they found a loophole to get around it. So I'm definitely not in agreement of this. I would love to see the fight actually rescheduled, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. According to Eddie Hearn, he's saying that's looking like they're leaning towards going after Tyson Fury immediately. So, I mean, that is what it is, man. You got any other thoughts on this one?
If he's actually injured, I hope Godspeed in his recovery, and hopefully that I think that if we see them make the fight after his whatever time it would take him to heal, if they still went ahead and make the fight, then at that point I think we could rest assured that it was an injury that set back the original date. But if they do somehow skip over him and he lays out for however long the injury's supposed to heal and then gets the Tyson Fury fight, people would definitely have a case. But we can move on to our next topic.
All right. I actually wanted to conclude it by saying Wallin and his team has actually wanted to see a report from Dillian Whyte's position and an independent position to clarify and verify that this was actually a confirmed injury. I don't know how far that will get, but, Dillian Whyte may get actually what he wants and what he's looking for. And, I mean, it's not going to be everything he wants. I don't see him beating Tyson Fury regardless. So, I mean, he could get his shot, but it is what it is. I wouldn't favor him in that fight, no way. Like Malachi said, we're going to go into our next topic from here, and this one is another pretty controversial one. I have a lot I definitely want to say about this one, but I'll go ahead and let my boy BC Left Hook start it off. Early in the week, the WBA denied Yordenis Ugas' request to face Errol Spence for a unification match, and he has now been ordered to face Eimantas Stanionis as a mandatory. And I guess they have 30 days to come to an agreement and before it has the purse bid. Let me get your thoughts on the WBA denial of Spence and what you think of this mandatory with the Stanionis, who actually recently signed with Richard Schaefer's Probellum promoters.
Okay, first I'm going to start off with this is the bullshit that these fucking organization bodies, excuse my French, are pulling and getting in the way of mega fights. Why in the world would you get in the way of a unification fight? It's mind-boggling, right? However, I'm not going to hate on the fight because Stanionis is a dangerous kid. That boy's got power in both hands. Now, he's not a real polished fighter. He does get hit often. It's going to be a contrasting matchup. But the kid can crack. And if he catches Ugas, he can knock Ugas out. Yeah, he's 13-0 with 9 KOs, I believe. He's a dangerous fight. And it sucks for Ugas because should he lose to this kid coming off that spectacular victory against Manny Pacquiao, it's going to be a minute before he gets another big time fight.
All right, so let me go ahead and chime in. I'm going to.
And the reason, before I say that, the reason I say that is because look how long it took him to get a big time fight.
Exactly, I definitely agree with you there. Definitely, Ugas was able to get this shot by chance, or as far as his title, especially being able to go against Manny Pacquiao recently. All of this was by dumb luck, and he's made the most of it after being denied, many times before. Many people thought he had beat Sean Porter, and, Sean Porter's had multiple fights or shots at titles, But, that's a whole nother story, another topic there. But I'm going to go in on the WB right now, and I'm going to echo your sentiments that this is complete bullshit, and I'm going to tell you why. So we had the situation where Triple G, or what the WBA is doing a unification or consolidation of belts, period. So, but with that being said, they still allowed Triple G to face Ryota Murata at the end of the year in a unification match, as opposed to making them fight a mandatory or some kind of tournament at 160. So why is this in place for Yordenis Ugas in a fight that's probably going to be bigger, that would actually be bigger than Triple G and Murata, other than it being in Japan? It'd be more people would be anticipating of that fight, being that it would be for 3 belts than the Triple G Murata fight that's coming up at the end of the year. So that's bullshit. The WBA kind of contradicted themselves with that one. And that's not the only time they've done it this week. I just read that Rais Aleem, who was an interim belt titleist, and they stripped him of his belt. He has to fight another final eliminator to get the winner of Stephen Fulton versus Brandon Figueroa. But they allowed Triple G to get the overpass all of this. Yordenis Ugas has been on a rant the last 2 days on social media, basically saying that Gilberto Mendoza, the WBA, actually promised him that he would be allowed to make a voluntary defense. And how often do you actually see somebody push directly into a mandatory after winning a title? We've seen it with Teofimo in the IBF against George Kambosos, but how often do you actually see a fighter win a belt and have to go directly into a mandatory defense? It's not very common. So I think it's bullshit. So that's one part. Then we have the situation where I don't have anything against Stanionis, but is he really the guy that deserves a mandatory here or a mandatory shot? Hell fucking no. Why would you not give that shot to the guy that had the interim title, which was Jamal James? Even though Ugas beat him before, he actually has the right to that fight, being that he was the interim titleist. Stanionis.
Well, it's politics. I mean, the other kid, they've been hyping this other kid up. He's been featured a lot on their PBC cards and I believe Showtime.
But I mean, I've gone as far as to say that I believe that fucking Gilberto Mendoza, the WBA, is in the pocketbook of Richard Schaefer. Honestly, you can't make this shit up the way that Yordenis Ugas is getting fucked every way without Vaseline. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I can't put it on anything else because, like I said, Jamal James was the interim titleist. If anybody deserves the title shot, it would be him. So I don't see how Stanionis with a win over Luis Collazo is getting this mandatory shot. It's some straight up bullshit. And we're being denied a unification, which is what we actually want in boxing. So, I mean, I feel Yordenis Ugas, and he's been going on a rant the last couple of days. I feel him wholeheartedly. Like, this is really crap what the WBA is doing. They're trying to make an effort to consolidate belts, but they're even screwing that shit up. I don't know. Like I'm at a loss with all these organizations except for the fucking IBF right now, and they're not even considered a strong belt. So I mean, all of these organizations are fucking are screwed over to me. And this is just another example. Even when they try to do right, they fuck it up somehow. But we'll go ahead and go into our next topic. This one might be a little heartbreaking for some, but it is resulting in some actual good news, which we'll be able to present in this topic. Ryan Garcia was actually forced to postpone this fight against Joseph Diaz, which was supposed to be a final eliminator to go against Devin Haney for his WBC title at a lightweight. He suffered a hand injury. He's going through surgery already. So let me get your thoughts on that as far as the postponement. And, we actually had some good news at the, a bright light at the end of the day, man.
Exactly. We did get something great out of this unfortunate injury. And sadly, it's becoming an issue with Ryan, bro. Like, people are realistically having a legitimate argument that Ryan isn't really injured or his mind isn't messed up. And I hate to say that because I don't like to question these warriors, but Ryan has a history of pulling out of fights with sudden injuries or his mind ain't right. And it's becoming a habit. I don't want to hate on Ryan. I've said this over and over. I like Ryan. I think he's great potentially for the sport because he has all those IG followers and social media followers. But the question for me is going to continue to be, does he want to be an actual fighter or does he want to be an IG model who punches punching bags?
All right. Before I get into my diatribe, let me go ahead and salute Clarence McLean. Faithful follower, good looking. What's up with you, bro? He has a couple of comments. Salute, brother. Salute you too, bro. Thanks for the support. And he had a comment related to our last topic. He says it's not the sport, it's the people in the sport. They need to go for sure. I definitely agree, man. These organizations are corrupt as hell, man. I kind of wonder what the root of them and the origination of a lot of them are. That they're definitely corrupt. They're very corrupt entities. But we'll go into continue with our topic about Ryan Garcia. I'll go ahead and echo Malachi's sentiments. You know what? It is becoming a bad thing with them. Just bad things are starting to follow his name all the time. I just don't know what to say. Like you say, does he want to be a real fighter, or does he just want to do it for the gram? Even Oscar De La Hoya, he was groomed to be the golden boy, and this image, catering to the ladies and all that. He brought in a different demographic to the sport. The way Ryan Garcia has brought back a different demographic to the sport as well with his Instagram following. But however, he has yet to show he's a real fighter, which his promoter Oscar De La Hoya did do. Nobody could ever take that away from Oscar De La Hoya. He was a real motherfucker in there. Ryan Garcia has yet to prove that. I mean, other than Luke Campbell, which I don't think highly of that fight anyway. He was always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing as far as Luke Campbell. So I mean, this is turning into a bad thing, and he did have hand surgery. We wish him a speedy recovery, but I want to see his career progress and see what he's really going to be about, because it seems like everybody else is passing him by. Even Devin Haney, who has yet to get his big shot against anybody, he still holds the title. And with that said, he'll be there was some news announced today that Devin Haney and Joseph Diaz have come to an agreement for a title fight. Devin Haney already had the December 3rd date on lock, and it looks like the contracts are pretty much going to be finalized over the weekend. The final holdup that I was seeing is that Devin Haney wanted a rematch clause, which is something that Joseph Diaz tweeted out in the aftermath of this post by Mike Coppinger. So, I mean, that was pretty much the only hang-up in the contract, but it should be finalized over the weekend, and we'll be getting the fight that we were supposed to get originally after Joseph Diaz beat Javier Fortuna. So, I mean, let's just call it dumb luck that the right thing is happening here. Let me get your thoughts on that as far as this aftermath news that is coming up of Devin Haney and Joseph
I
Diaz.
like this fight. I think that Haney has all the intangibles to make him the overwhelming favorite, height, length, and Haney is a smart boxer. Diaz though, he's proven at times he can be a dog, and he's a quality fighter. This is a good fight for Devin Haney. I'm gonna favor Devin Haney, but I really like this fight, so I'm not disappointed that Ryan pulled out. So I actually like this fight a lot more than I did the other fight.
I'll definitely agree with you, and we got a comment from Clarence McLean on this one. He loves this fight, as we all do. This is the fight we were supposed to be getting all along. So I'm glad that this was actually being forced. It's just call it dumb luck. I think Devin Haney is going to get a chance to showcase his skill set for real against Joseph Diaz, against a guy that's been known to be a pressure fighter. I was trying to do some analytics on it today, just thinking how the fight may turn up, and just breaking it down in my head of what I expect to happen. I guess we could kind of wait till it actually happens, but like Malachi, I do favor Haney heavily in this fight, just based on his intangibles, athleticism, reach, and height, that he has over Joseph Diaz. But I definitely feel like this is a fight that Joseph Diaz is going to be up for. He has put up a couple of brain farts at times, brain fart performances, but I think this is one that he's going to be up for.
Yeah, I do too, because I think Joseph Diaz is going to talk a lot of trash.
Yeah, and I mean, they've already been going back and forth against each other even before this fight was announced contractually today, calling each other bitches and shit like that. They've been going back and forth on Twitter.
Because speaking of that word, Diaz, I believe, he called Ryan Garcia a pussy. He basically said he was faking his injury. He was scared to fight.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a brutal fight for him. Joseph Diaz is a pressure fighter, and it would have brought in a whole nother element that we haven't seen Ryan Garcia go against. I think we would have had to see Ryan Garcia gut that one out. And I don't see him necessarily knocking out Joseph Diaz, who has proven to have a solid chin. We don't know what it will look like at 135, but he hasn't been hurt by anyone, up to this point. So, once that's out the window, you got a bulldog and Joseph Diaz in your face pressuring you all day. And Garcia likes to fight at mid-range so he can keep that left, pop that left on you, the left hook on you. It definitely wouldn't. I don't think it would have boded well from him, and it would have caused him even more damage than he's had mentally. And it might have ruined the fighter. I think it would have been one of those kind of punishing bouts for him, for Garcia. So, I mean.
Oh, really? So you think like Diaz dog walks Garcia?
I definitely think it'd be a punishing fight. I definitely think it'd be a punishing fight for him. I don't care if you got Canelo in your corner or not. There's just certain things you can't teach him. And you can't teach somebody guts.
If Ryan clips him, though, Ryan's gonna put him on the mat.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It comes down to we haven't seen Joseph Diaz hurt by anyone at 126 or 130, but 135 may be that weight class to where he actually feels something. And it takes somebody power. Go ahead.
I would at least from the sight, at least based on sight, I would believe that Ryan Garcia hits harder than Devin Haney.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I think Diaz would. I don't know if he could be all out as aggressive versus Ryan, who has proven to have punching power, or versus where he's going to have to. He's going to have to be that absolute monster pressure fighter versus Devin Haney, because Devin Haney's going to outbox him. If Devin Haney starts getting him at the end of those straight 1-2s, you can see Diaz potentially hit the mat.
So what I don't want to necessarily see happen with this one is Ryan Garcia get a title shot against the winner of this. I don't want to see that happen. He's been lingering off of this Luke Campbell fight for a while. I need to see him in there against somebody competitive again before he gets a title shot or gets blessed with one by the WBC. Devin Haney, he's done everything he was supposed to do. The WBC had mandated that he fights 2 mandatory straight, and both of these guys have managed to talk their way out of it and hold up the division, or hold up that organization at least, and prevent other things from happening. So, I mean, I don't want to see Garcia get a shot against the winner. That would be a bad move by the WBC to let that happen. I kind of feel like you got to do whatever you've done for me lately. Clarence McLean with another comment. Ryan won't do anything but fake another injury. I kind of agree. He didn't seem like he was really up for facing Devin Haney anyway. If you hear some of his interviews he's done in the past, he seems like he has no interest in fighting Devin Haney, even though he was a titleist and a mandatory shot holder.
We had spoke about that because he had won the WBC. What it was one of the minor belts, right? He had won that, and even though he had it, he still was talking about fighting Tank Davis for the WBA strap. He never really did show interest in fighting Devin Haney, and you have to wonder if that goes back to their amateur days. Does he? I believe that Haney had beat him in the amateurs. I wonder if there's some things there. The same reason that you don't really see Ryan talk about Rolly. I don't think Ryan wants any part of Rolly.
Oh, Rolly whooped his ass at what's that, Mayweather's gym. He dog walked him and had him pretty much butthurt. Rolly ran over him. As far as the amateur bouts, they did split with each other. So I hear Devin Haney won a couple, and Ryan they split their series essentially. But the amateurs is different from the pros. Devin Haney always had a pro style even as an amateur, kind of like Shakur Stevenson. They didn't necessarily have that doghouse amateur style that, everything is based on a number of punches thrown. They always had pro styles where they could outbox you and look better. So I mean, I don't think it would have boded well. I don't see Ryan Garcia outboxing Devin Haney. I see him hurting him possibly with the left hook. But that's about it. But he never showed, like we said, he never showed any interest in fighting Haney even after he won the interim title against Luke Campbell, and he was named a mandatory to Devin Haney. So we'll see what happens with his career from here. But I'm happy we got some good news at the end of the day as far as this Devin Haney Joseph Diaz title fight, December 3rd, and that will actually be the day before Tank Davis versus Rowley. So, I mean, that's going to be a very interesting fight weekend when it does actually happen. Let's go ahead and get into our next topic, man. This one might not be so exciting for some of you. Definitely not as much for me, but I'm going to go in on it anyway. We got Kid Galahad from the UK, 126-pound title holder. I believe he is the WBO champion. If I'm not, no, he's the
WBA, isn't he?
Okay, I'm not sure which organization he is. He might be because I know Leo Santa Cruz still has the belt at 126.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the IBF. I'm not sure, but he'll be putting his title on the line against Kiko Martinez of Spain. What do you think about this defense, man? Does it get you up animated?
It doesn't do nothing for me. Galahad needs to fight somebody other than a 10-loss Martinez at this point. I don't see this being a bad fight, but the fight in of itself, it does nothing for me. Martinez, I don't think he deserves a title shot at this juncture. That's just my opinion. There was I just would like to see them pursue more of maybe down the lines of unification or something and take this fight.
Yeah, I mean this fight definitely doesn't move the needle for me. I've never thought much of either the Galahad brothers, but you know how I am with UK fighters. I think they're most of them are just good domestic level fighters, and when they get thrown on the stage internationally, they always falter essentially.
I mean, I could see it. Like Martinez could come out there and beat him, because I'm not that high on Galahad either.
Yeah, I mean Martinez is definitely he has the experience advantage here. You know, he's been there against some very big opponents. He's been there against Gary Russell. He lost to Gary Russell Jr. previously. You know, he's been in there against Josh Warrington, who was a champ. He's
lost to Josh too.
Yeah, I mean he's been in there against Leo Santa Cruz, so he's definitely got the experience. You know, even been in there with Carl Frampton. So Kiko Martinez is a real game fighter. You know, he's at the tail end of it being 35. Galahad is 31, but you know, Kiko Martinez can definitely make it a competitive fight. But I'm just not big on Kid Galahad, and I'm kind of upset about the whole situation with the way the IBF happened. You know, Josh Warrington ended up dropping his belt, and you know he lost anyway in the aftermath. But you know, Kiko Martinez is just kind of picking up things in the spoils of war. I don't even see him as a factor at 126, even though he's a titleist. So, I mean, hopefully we could get something of it. I don't see any unifications happening as a result of him winning this fight. I don't see any bigger fights on the horizon for Kid Galahad, even though he claims that that's what he would like. But we'll see what happens, man. The 126 division has been stagnant for some time. It's not as deep as it once was. And, I mean, we need – all these guys at the 126 division just need to get in fucking gear. You know, Gary Russell's my boy, but, you know, we need to see your ass in there too. Leo Santa Cruz, we need to see your ass in there too. You know, Navarrette's the only one that's really working right now at 126. So, I mean, the division is in a stalemate.
I would have liked this I'd much rather seen Kid Galahad versus Mark Magsayo, who I believe the WBC is mandated as the number one contender with Gary Russell. But Martinez, you know, as we stated, he's going to make the fight competitive, but it just doesn't move any needles in the division unless Martinez was to upset him somehow. But even then, it really wouldn't shake up the division that much, because I think most people outside of the UK, have the same sentiment we do.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick it over into our next topic, man. Now, for it to be such a great trilogy, there have been reports put out that the Tyson Fury Wilder 3 trilogy did under 600,000 buys, which would put it at a loss financially, supposedly. Let me get your thoughts on that, man. And is this something that we're looking too much into as fans of the sport? Are we worried too much about that?
Yeah, we are, because no matter how many pay-per-view sales that fight did, that fight is an instant classic. One of the best heavyweight fights that I've witnessed in quite a long time. So I don't care about the pay-per-view buys. I didn't expect it to do a million. I mean, 600K isn't that bad.
That's actually worse. Good. In this day and age is actually pretty good for anybody outside of Canelo and Joshua. Like, that's fucking good.
So I mean, like, in considering, as much as I hate to say it, Deontay Wilder is not a draw in the United States. I mean, he's not, just because of the way the sport is, where it is in the Western culture. There's, other things. Not hating on Deontay Wilder, but he's not a draw. He's not a pay-per-view draw. And Fury, his dancing partner's from the UK. So.
I mean, I think that's just the U.S. number. So it actually probably did more in the U.K., where it was, I think it was broadcast on pay-per-view over there. I forgot what their channel agreement is. It might be BT Sports or Sky. I think it might be Sky now with Frank Warren. I forgot who they're under right now since Eddie Hearn left Sky Sports. But, I mean, 600K buys in the U.S. is actually a good buy rate. Anything over 200, 250 is actually considered on the cusp of doing good these days. Tank Davis has done 200, 250K buys in his pay-per-views, and they've been considered successful. Errol Spence Jr. has done pretty much 300K buys in his pay-per-view events, and those have been considered successful defenses or events. So for 600K buys that happen between two guys that haven't fought in pretty much an 18-month period span, to me, that's actually good. I know they had high guarantee money, which is probably the reason why people are looking more into it and saying this is at a loss. Had it not been for those high guarantees, 600K buys would be fucking outstanding, on a profit end. So, I mean, like you said, people are actually looking too much into this, just because this is still going to be a classic, something we'll be able to go back to, and both men put their heart on the line. To me, it was a great fight that lived up to what was expected, because people thought it was going to be a blowout, quicker than the first one. And this one actually went 11. And, both guys are very competitive compared to the second fight. So, I mean, it outdid expectations in my eyes, even with the 3 600Ks buys. The previous two didn't even do that much. So, to me, this was a successful event, regardless of what people say. I feel like that was a good buy rate. I'm not sure how much was spent doing it by Fox pay-per-view or Fox Sports, but I think everybody got their money's worth that did buy it. Nobody can complain about it. The undercard may have been a little bit underwhelming than we expected, but the main event certainly lived up to more than what we were expecting at the time. So we'll move on to our next topic from here. We got Vasyl Lomachenko versus Richard Commey finalized. No date has been announced, but what I'm expecting is that this will probably land on the traditional Heisman voting weekend that Top Rank does yearly, or they have done the past couple of years. Lomachenko has actually been on a couple of those, I believe. So, I mean, this is no new territory for him. Let me get your thoughts on this fight, Malachi.
I love this fight. It's a great stylistic matchup. Richard Commey, the former IBF world champion, who Teofimo Lopez beat in order to get his shot at Vasyl Lomachenko. And any question about whether or not Lomachenko was finished, quote unquote, were overwhelmingly answered in his previous fight. And he put on a show. I think both are going to come. They're bringing, that championship swag that both, have had because they've had the titles in the past. I'm going to favor Lomachenko, but this is a great fight to me.
I am actually happy about this fight. Lomachenko's still going after it, man. Richard Commey's a dangerous fucking fighter. He's known to be a very huge puncher. A high knockout ratio. And he's bounced back recently in this fight against Jackson Martinez with an early second round, with an early knockout of him. He actually showed a different style in that fight. Jackson Martinez was a guy that was robbed against Rolly Romero. If you don't know who he is, the guy that actually that should have won against Rolly Romero, but was pretty much dicked on the decision. But he came in there and he put it on Jackson Martinez and pressured him in ways that we've never seen before. And I ultimately think that might be what we see stylistically in that fight against Lomachenko. This is a huge fight for Lomachenko. This is a guy that can crack just as much as Teofimo Lopez. So we got to salute Lomachenko for taking on the toughest foes available for him, since he can't get the rematch with Teofimo Lopez apparently. And I'm definitely looking forward to this fight. And I just want to clarify something. That fight is looking like it will be on December 11th in Madison Square Garden. So yeah, we do have a date for it, which I'm guessing that will be the Heisman Trophy presentation weekend as well. Let me go ahead and get into some comments that we got from Clarence McClain. He clowned Kid Galahad, saying he looks like Kell Brook's little brother. You know what? A lot of those guys in the UK do look alike, man. So, it's funny you say that, Clarence. He also said he enjoyed the entire card of Deontay Wilder Fury 3. Next comment was, if Loma beats him, Lopez will say so. He already did that. And yeah, that's Teofimo. He always has a smart remark waiting for everybody. So, but I'm looking forward to see what happens in the aftermath of that fight and seeing if we could actually get close to. I don't think we'll get a rematch, because it seems like Teofimo is looking for the fight against Joshua Taylor, which we talked about on our show the other day. But we'll see what happens, man. And hopefully Loma could get himself in the title contention again. I almost wonder if we'll be able to see him and Devin Haney possibly. And I don't think Devin Haney's team would see him after the way Loma did them previously, taking the franchise tag. But anyway, we'll go ahead and go into our next topic. I don't know if any of you have been paying attention to social media the last week or so. Anthony Joshua has actually been here in the U.S., and it looks like he's on a tour of the U.S. in search of another lead trainer heading into his rematch against Alexander Usyk. He was at Robert Garcia's gym. He visited the Reynosos in Canelo's camp. He visited Ronnie Shields in Houston. Virgil Hunter, he's been doing the who's who of U.S. the top U.S. trainers. I even hear he's supposed to be going to link up with Freddie Roach as well. So let me get your thoughts on this and what you think Anthony Joshua is actually doing with this, and do you think it will bode well for him as far as a rematch? Because I've actually been going hard on this one as well in the groups on Facebook.
I think it's smart, and I also think it's a sign of Anthony Joshua wants to be a world champion again. So there was a lot of people that have been questioning his actual desire to stay in the sport. Even I think Eddie Hearn mentioned him like possible retirement for this guy in an interview not too long ago. So I think it shows that he still has that desire to be a world champion again. He's willing to humble himself and realize he might need to make some changes in his camp in order to achieve that. If the Klitschko's don't go over and change trainers, does Vitaly become the fighter, or Vladimir become the fighter that he became? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing for Lennox Lewis. Went over to the Manny Stewart after suffering some setbacks, changed his whole life, changed his whole reign, So with that said, I'm gonna ask you another question, man. Which trainer from the U.S. do you think will bode best for him in this rematch stylistically and what he needs? And I'll go ahead and go on my reign after that.
That's a good question. I'm gonna. I like Eddie Reynoso right now. I think that he's been working wonders with his fighters.
Stylistically, you think that would be the best person of the?
No, I think Virgil Hunter actually.
Okay, so that's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah.
We got Clarence McLean. He says Derek James. I would actually agree with them there stylistically. Yes.
I don't know that he's reached out to Derek though yet.
No, he hasn't. But
okay.
I think Clarence was just throwing that out there. That actually would be a wise fucking choice. But that's not out of the options that have been presented or that we've seen him with so far.
Oh wait. Oh, okay. I thought you were asking me. Well, shoot, if all of them, what he needs to do is he's going to have to pressure fucking Usyk in order to beat him. He's not going to be able to outbox him. He's not going to be able to counter punch him to win the fight. He's going to have to be a pressure fighter, something that we haven't necessarily seen. Freddie Roach or Abel Sanchez.
Okay, so those are actually some good choices. So I'm going to kind of limit my choices to the people we've seen him actually visit. I've gotten into debates about this over the week because it looks like he was leaning towards Ronnie Shields. He spent quite a bit of time with the Charlo brothers in Texas and Ronnie Shields. They even got some work in. I didn't see him putting any work with any of the other trainers, and he actually was doing some work with Ronnie Shields. Who's trained the likes of great heavyweights like Evander Holyfield, Tyson. He's had some great guys under his wing. To me, I feel like the person that he's visited so far that gives him the best chance would actually be Robert Garcia. Outside of Mikey Garcia, all of Robert Garcia's fighters are pressure fighters. You look at Virgil Ortiz, you look at Brandon Rios, Marcos Maidana. Those are all guys that were pressure fighters. And I think that, we both agree that is the style he would need to beat Alexander Usyk. One of the debates I've gotten into was with a guy I'm pretty fond of, Lyman, from one of our groups. He basically said he was leaning towards Ronnie Shields, and I'm just like, stylistically, that's fucking horrible. And he was going back to say, well, he needs the mental aspect as well. And I'm like, that's, you can't teach a guy to be mentally tough or to have that kind of dog in him, You'd need like a Teddy Atlas or somebody that could psychologically get into you, or even Malik Scott. We've seen him have to push Deontay Wilder that way recently, mentally, psychologically. He's had to coach him in that kind of way. So, there's not many trainers like that, and you got to have a lot of that within you already to be a boxer, that is what people are questioning about Anthony Joshua already. Does he have that in him? And he doesn't seem to. He takes losses too easily, as, Timothy Bradley said. A lot of people agree. So to me, I feel like as far as stylistically, the physical aspect, the only person or the only guys that would be good for him, you mentioned Freddie Roach, who's known to be a guy that cuts off his fighters, cut off the ring well and are pressure fighters. But he hasn't necessarily visited with him yet. So I feel like Robert Garcia is that guy that would be best for him stylistically. Clarence McLean left another comment. James already has Spence and Charlos, but he could change a lot with AJ. Another thing you got to think, Joshua, he seems to get physically drained. And, being in that camp with Derek James, he'll definitely be able to go push 12 the right way. One of the things that has been a lingering issue with Anthony Joshua is his stamina and endurance. James definitely pushes his fighters to go fucking a full 12. They have some very physical sparring. Short breaks in between. He runs a real brutal camp. So, Anthony Joshua would be in for the camp for his life with him, and he'd definitely be in shape as far as stamina-wise with him better than any other trainer. So, I mean, it would be a good matchup, and Derrick James is someone that could teach him a pressure style. I don't know if he's worked with any heavyweights, though. Same thing with Robert Garcia. I don't think he's worked with any heavyweights that I can recall. So, with that said, we'll go into our final topic of the evening. We'll do a preview and prediction of tomorrow's big title fight between Shakur Stevenson and WBO champion lightweight Jamel Herring. Malachi, let's get your breakdown, analysis, and prediction for this fight, man. How you see it going?
I think that there's a reason that Shakur Stevenson is the heavy favorite going into the fight. But there's something about the Marine that he's not supposed to be here, but he is. He's a dog. I loved him in his last fight. A lot of people didn't think he was going to win that fight, and he went out there and dominated, as we've talked about it. A future Hall of Famer, in Carl Frampton, and I still like Shakur Stevenson in the fight. I think he's just more athletic. He's younger. I think he's faster. But I think that he's going to get tested. And we'll find out a little bit about Shakur, where some questions that we haven't seen answered before. I still like Shakur. I like him to outwork and outbox Herring, and I think that Shakur Stevenson will be in the new at the end, but I do think it'll go all 12.
Man, this is one I've been going back and forth about. I've had a lot of questions about both fighters. On one hand, you got Jamel Herring, who seemed to be leaning towards moving up in weight or either retiring post the Frampton fight. He didn't seem like initially that he was too thrilled to take on this fight. I'm not sure if that has to do with the weight or him having difficulties making weight, or they both made weight today, or because of the alliance with Terrence Crawford and the friendship that they share with Bud Crawford. So I mean, it seemed like a fight he wasn't necessarily into at first. So I've had to question that: was he 1 foot in the game and 1 foot out, which is always dangerous for a boxer. And then with Shakur Stevenson, I had the questions of, was he really ready? He's considered the next prodigy, the next Floyd Mayweather in this sport, as far as his intellect in the ring and cerebral ability in the ring.
I think that we might see a nervous Stevenson early on because of the way he's been acting.
You've seen it already,
You know what I mean?
To this fight, he's being out of character.
Yeah, I think that I think early on we're going to see a nervous Shakur Stevenson, because as you said, he has done a lot of things that out of character.
Let me go ahead.
And I think that the more that I paid attention and more I watched it, a lot of it did. At first I was disagreeing with the people. Then when I really looked at it, a lot of it did scream nervous energy.
Yeah, and it still does. And I think we lost Malachi there. Oh, wow. So, I mean, Clarence, I'll go ahead and read your comment. Shakur is something special. The real question is how we take a punch from Herring. That's definitely a good question, Clarence, man, because we've seen Shakur shy away from the puncher in his most recent bout, which people seem to be dogging him about as far as his performance, and it was a lackluster, boring fight. He shied away from the power of that guy. Herring hasn't necessarily been known to be a knockout artist, but he did knock out Carl Frampton recently. So I don't know what to make of that. I still don't think Herring is necessarily a knockout artist or a KO puncher. But, he does have Brian Bo McIntyre in his corner.
Yeah, I'm pulling for Herring. I'm going to be open and honest about it. I'm pulling for Herring. I like his character. He's one of my friends on Facebook. Not like we talk or anything, but I follow him here on Facebook, and he's a good family man. He's everything you want in a champion to be an ambassador for the sport of boxing. I just, here in this instance, I think Shakur Stevenson just has a little bit more in his arsenal and his skill set than the Marine.
I definitely agree, but this is going to be Stevenson's first test. That's something else I question, going into this fight as far as Shakur's been carefully matched and he's looked dominant against pretty much against everybody he's been in against. This is the first guy that actually could test his mental fortitude, or test his fortitude in the ring. Clarence McLean mentions Herring has a lot more to lose than Shakur. Herring is older, 35, and his time will end soon. I definitely agree, which is why I said I think he looked like he was leaning. He had one foot in the door, one foot out of it. After the Carl Frampton fight, he had been talking retirement or moving up in weight, for a potential big payday. I think he really wanted the fight with what's his name, Oscar Valdez. That's what he really wanted, was that kind of payday. So I don't think he really wanted to fight Shakur because of that more than anything. He wanted a unification, which is, nothing wrong with that. But, Shakur waited his turn and allowed the match against Carl Frampton to happen. And, I'm glad Herring is a man of honor. And he still went through with the match with Shakur, so I'm happy we've seen that. I kind of want to say this is one of those where I'm split on. My heart is pulling for Herring, but like you say, Malachi, Shakur just has all the mental, all the intangibles, everything you could think of, the mental side, the physical side, the youth. Like I was saying, he is the next prodigal son of U.S. boxing, and this is his chance to display it. I think it will go the distance. But I would love to see how Herring comes out stylistically. Are they going to try and put some pressure on him? Because Herring does still have some athleticism and better legs than most of the opponents that Shakur has faced to this date. So, I just want to see him make Shakur work more than anything. And I think that's what we're both anticipating, that Shakur is going to have to earn this one, finally.
Agreed. I'm interested to see if Andre Ward's the announcer again. I think last time Shakur fought, Andre had some criticism for him that he didn't have previously, back when they were doing a little business together. Back when he was calling him the next, Hall of Famer.
Yeah. So we'll be looking forward to that fight tomorrow. It's not necessarily going to be a big crowd. It's a fight in Atlanta, but it's still a big fight. This is one of the fights that has been looked up to towards the latter part of the year, and we definitely have a lot more big fights coming up the end of the year. So boxing is rebounded. It's done good this year, despite COVID still being a prominent fixture in all of our lives, man. I guess that's going to conclude our show for tonight. You got anything you want to add, Malachi, before we get up out of here?
Nope, bro. Great doing the show with you again tonight. I want to thank everybody who watched and participated, and everybody who'll watch later. You guys are why we do the show.
All right, and with that said, man, I definitely want to echo those sentiments. Thanks to everybody that's continued to support. Clarence McLean, shout out to you. We got to get you back on the show again one of these days, brother. You're a faithful follower, faithful listener, and you always got some good insight. Everybody else that's continued to support us. For the final bill, hosted by Danger Zone Boxing Talk. We out of here till next week.